let's get into it. The 10 Commandments of the Soul-Led Business, number 5. Okay. Number 5. Make things simple for yourself and others. Explain your work to people like they are 5 years old. You can still share complexity and depth, but we all speak our own unique language. So simple is potent. For me, this is probably one of the hardest fields that I have had to master. Not everybody is like this. For some people, it is super simple for them to articulate what it is that they do and to share like more spiritual concepts with ease. Not for me. It has not been for me. And in fact, I remember when I heard people say this. So we're talking about copywriters, business coaches, sales coaches, those who give advice in business. I've heard these things said over and over, and I agree. I agree with them. In fact, I don't only agree, I think that it's probably the best way. And I thought it would be interesting to share the maturation of this struggle in me, share the history of the squeeze of this challenge, okay? Because there's a lot that I have to say about this. I remember in the beginning thinking, how can I say it a different way? If I'm talking about manifestation, if I'm talking about alignment, if I'm talking about energy, if I'm talking about these spiritual terms, they just are what they are. Alignment is alignment. Manifestation is manifestation. This is how I reacted to it. And I used to really poo-poo this type of advice. I used to think to myself, if I was just selling coffee cups, or if I was back in my prior career running a restaurant, it's easy to explain to people what I do. I can just simply say I'm executive chef in San Francisco, California. I cook fine dining Italian food. I own a butcher shop in San Francisco where we focus on whole animal butchery. I wrote a book on called Butchery and Sausage Making. It was a for dummies book. I'm a chef. And then people would say, wow, you're a butcher, and you're a chef. And wow, they're so impressed. Immediately being impressed, immediately understanding what I was talking about. And I was in that career for 20 years. And then to segue into this space where I felt like it was time for me to learn to create in a new way. And yet the terminology that I had been indoctrinated with over the years of like the spiritual fluff lingo was so deeply woven through my own internal awareness, because I had engaged with it on a surface level within myself, such that I had no deeper definition. And what I found over the years of paying attention to and keeping my eyes on the prize to develop this skill is that I didn't have more words because I didn't really know what the words meant through an embodied perspective. I remember my mentor saying to me so many times, it will happen for you when you're in alignment with what you desire to create. And I remember thinking, like, what do you mean? How am I not in alignment? I'm taking the steps every day. I'm in action. I'm meditating. I'm studying. I'm showing up in ways that I feel that are outside of my comfort zone. Like, I'm trying. I'm not just sitting around waiting for life to materialize before my eyes. Like, what am I missing here? And it used to infuriate me. I remember, like, I would never express this because I was there to learn. But internally, I would start to feel this real agitation, like frustration, impatience, these feelings of I should be further along than where I am now. I should see the results. And it wasn't until I developed a practice and started to live meticulously within the minutia of what alignment meant. It truly wasn't for me until I started working with the star map that I even understood what alignment actually meant. And now that I do, I can think of 100 different ways to describe alignment. So oftentimes when we feel stuck expressing ourselves, when we feel like up against a block in our business when it comes to not relying on spiritual lingo or fluff words, it's because the word that we can't reframe to make the journey simple for someone is a word that we haven't fully embodied. This is my experience. And the reason why this is important is because if you want to connect to the people out there who genuinely, truly want what you have to offer, and if it's important to you to serve, then this has to matter to you because it's like a staircase of communication. You can always use words that behave like jargon in the self-help field, but you have to be able to explain something to me like I don't understand what you mean. You got to have both of those skills. And so I'm really of the mind over the years to believe that my clientele has a high level of spiritual intelligence. They already get the things that I'm saying, and I will not dumb down my message. But the notion of dumbing down your message versus applying mastery to your message so that you can lead people through the journey is two very different things. So I'm just going to give a short example and a couple suggestions. So if I say to someone, I teach you how to create from your soul's potential, I already understand that the term soul's potential doesn't hold a lot of energetic weight, most likely in the collective realm, like the collective consciousness. Secondly, I guarantee you what somebody else thinks soul's potential means is not what I see it to mean. They might understand what I see it to mean after working with me for a while, but there is a real mechanical definition where I'm coming from when I'm talking about soul's potential. So instead of assuming that I could say something like potential is where your dreams, where the dreams for what you want to create in your life come from. It's where your vision turns from an idea to reality. That's potential. That space right in between. And there are people who have tons of soul potential that will not actualize it because the action is not up to speed with the dream state or the imagination of the person. There could be lots of reasons why potential isn't actualized, but that part is not as important as my ability over time to really get into the three-dimensional definition of not only what that means, but how it affects people. Because within that, I begin to understand what clients are dealing with, what the potential within that potential is for me to educate people who are interested in hearing from me, and also for me to develop tools and offerings and services that really help people in an exciting way. I could share personal stories about my relationship to potential for other ways to explain what it is I mean by that. I could share stories about how I remember being young and thinking and knowing that I could be anything that I dreamed. I could share stories about times where I've had incredible ideas and then done nothing with them. I could also share about how I've learned through experience that all not all ideas are worth making moves with, and what is the internal experience that I'm having in order to decide which one I should move on and which one I should let go of. There's just so much richness in understanding how to take yourself down this track of really making things simple for people, really getting to the point where you can have a conversation with a client or anyone in your life about what it is that you do and not feel misunderstood. The belief that people don't understand you and the effect on your confidence when you buy into that is also a real drag on your business and what you want to create. So, from a soul perspective, you have to consider that spiritual terminology or the essence of a spiritual experience is an indefinable realm. That's why we create language and methodologies and strategies and rituals and so many different ways to connect to that beautiful aspect of our true nature because, like I said, it is where dreams live. It's the landscape of our magic and success in the world, and it's important to us to have a relationship to it. And additionally, when it comes to speaking to the parts of us that are human and then want to know what to do with all of that, we are like the 5-year-old that needs the right kind of explanation. I want to wrap up by saying this that even considering the fact that we know that spiritual lingo is typically surface level, and that most of the time, when a lot of what we hear out there is being said, it lacks embodiment, it lacks true depth, and therefore we can't really make sense of it. But consider how when a person continues to perpetuate that cycle without digging into the understanding of the terminology that they're using, that not only do they create more white noise in the field, but they create more of that within themselves. And it ends up becoming like a fog that we don't want to experience when our deepest desire is to connect in to the heart of our soul and live from an integrated state. 10 commandments of the soul led business. Speak to me like I'm 5 years old. Keep things simple. Simple is potent. And if you can take that nugget and apply it to your tools, to your understanding of yourself, to the way that you speak about your work while holding the field for that spiritual intelligence, you will hit a cadence between the relationship with your soul blueprint and your human blueprint that helps you move much faster and gets you where you are ultimately going. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.